Excellent. Okay, well, this is the eighth web conference. Hello, Molly. How are you doing? There, the angel appeared. Jeff, there she is. Where's the wings? You're hiding them. Oh, there it is. Yeah, well, Molly and Jeff is watching it from heaven today. They decided to see it from there. Okay, so the eighth web conference, the idea was to do an integration meeting, which it's not going to happen, I don't think today, but I would like to open maybe a possibility, an arrangement for some weekend before, because after this, I'm also going to start this kind of like second course, which the second course is more into like a tool of seeing how to arrange the year in a different way, which is called the feminine calendar, and the ring of fire, the Tumi. It's we're going to go into weird places, so maybe a lot of people were, I'm not sure, we're going to be more interested in more the logical construct. Yeah? This is just other different tools that have came out of this work through Alejandra, which are interesting to share, but which are just how to say, they are born out of this simplicity, or this this fractal that we have been sharing here, yeah, and it's got a lot to do with this expression of numbers, and so we're going to go into different kind of strange areas, yeah, with that. But we will be giving that this month, in the last Sunday of this month. So maybe before we begin that, for those who want to join, it would be nice to see if I can find a weekend or just some hours. Also, we could do it after. Really, it's no need to do it before, really, thinking about it. But it would be nice to have an integration meeting, you know, just something where we just kind of open the mic and just kind of give a synthetic point of view, you know, like a way of just wrapping it up, what we have been seeing during these 8 months, So, so it's not going to happen today, but I would like that space to be open, yeah, for us to. So I will think of a possible date and I'll let you guys know, okay? So yeah, this next course is what I call space-time structures, and we go into just probably deeper into what we've been seeing in the last class and this one, which is this aspect of numbers as a print of the impersonal logic in space-time. Because look, we could say that there is an impersonal consciousness, yeah, that unfolds itself into different personal expressions or particular expressions, okay? There is a great logic behind it. There is a huge intelligence behind it, yeah? Allowing that unfoldment of those elements to have a certain characteristics, certain design, a certain way of interrelating each other, a certain way of you know, organizing itself. Okay, well that well, the numbers are, I sometimes like to put it as, if that impersonal intelligence is a thumb, the numbers is like, you know, when you go to the police, or you know, or when you, and they I got the name in Spanish, huella. A print, yeah, print. You know when you leave a print on a piece of paper? Yeah, a fingerprint. And you leave a print, so, but what you have left on the piece of paper isn't the thumb. It isn't the thumb, but it is it has the same graph, it has the same print, it has the same it represents its characteristics. That's what numbers are, in a way. Numbers is kind of like the print of the fingers of the space-time consciousness. Yeah? At least it's a type of print that us as humans can use as a tool, meaning that it isn't like, it's just a way of identifying the finger. You see what I mean? You know, because the police can't keep the finger, okay? It would be weird. So what they do is they create mechanisms for them to be able to identify that finger. Well, the consciousness of space-time leaves prints everywhere. Prints. Why? Because for the personal consciousness, the unfolded consciousness, to be able to recognize and identify that the quality, the characteristics of that impersonal consciousness. One of the mechanisms, for example, police use ink and a piece of paper, yeah? But those are not those are the tools, the medium. Well, the medium that we have available as humans is what we call numbers, especially numbers, but also language, okay? And different ways of organizing space and time. So space and time has an organization that is, it's like the finger exists before the print, doesn't it? The print is just, the finger already has those qualities and leaves it on that piece of paper. So the same thing with numbers and language. So numbers or language is an aspect of the consciousness of Earth. Let's now specify it on Earth and the solar system, okay? So Earth's consciousness is expressing itself through all its elements. The same way the consciousness of the unified consciousness of my organism is expressing itself through all its aspects, yeah? And they all participating for a common denominator. Well, the same thing with Earth, okay? Now, the tools or the mechanisms that my neurons use, or the cells of my lungs use, is very different. Meaning, the mechanisms that humans have are basically for humans to use in their role on this organism. So, but what is it's not created by the human. Like if it was dissociated from the central nervous system called the Earth, it is the central nervous system is expressing a mechanism through a type of cell. But the quality of space and the quality of time, the thumb, exists before the print, language and numbers, okay? So that's what, so it's like the print of Earth's consciousness is expressed in the mechanisms of language and of numbers, yeah? And of the calendar and of the organization of the telephone codes. Those are the print. For us to be able to have a mechanism to identify the finger, okay? Okay, so taking this analogy, this is basically what it is. So in the first class the other day, we were looking more at space. Space, how the space of the superficie of Earth in the continents is organized. And one of the prints that we have is this organization in telephone codes, yeah, of the continents. Each continent has this, it begins with a unit, and there's 9 units, and we already understand that 9 has a lot to do with the structure of the consciousness, at least of our solar system, and of course as a fractal of our Earth. So this aspect of 9 and 0 making up, you know, the 10 units of numbers. So that print. And we were seeing it with these 9 expressions of the continents, and within those continents we have the countries, which are like, if the continent is like a system, like nervous system, digestive system, the countries are like organs, sorry, which participate in the for that system to function, yeah. So, well, we were seeing a bit how the quality of the finger is expressed in each of these countries, yeah. So does that mean that there is a quality of Holland before the creation of Holland? Yes, yes. But where does that, where is that quality? It's in the consciousness of Earth. And then it expresses in that division. It's like, you see when you see a cell, sorry, when you see the process of a development of a fetus, you know, like the gestation, and it begins just with one cell, and it starts multiplying. And it already has, in negative, how it's going to organize itself in a differentiation of where the lungs are going to be, where the heart's going to be, it already has a bit of negative, you see, and then it is expressed in positive, okay? Negative and in positive. Well, the Earth has negative consciousness and it expresses it in positive, yeah? We also have that same thing. We have a negative consciousness, meaning aspects that haven't been expressed yet and which end up being expressed in the positive aspect, yeah? And then a membrane between the non-expressed and the expressed. And the thing is, the nature of space-time is always to express new versions of things that haven't been expressed yet. So that's why when you see something that is locked into a circle, there must be a distortion occurring there, because naturally what tends to happen is new expressions sustained on a similar basis, but new expressions, which is like added value on what has already been expressed. You see, it's like the layers, the geological layers of the Earth, you know, like there's always a new layer being expressed that hasn't been expressed before, but the ones underneath sustain and nurture the ones on top, okay? So this is what should happen. It's what evolution and the expansion of consciousness, the expansion of reality should always have this mechanism of escalabilidad is the name in Spanish. I'll try to look for that word because it must have this element of like the spiral, which is always growing, but including the other rings, yeah, like a tree. And if this is not happening with ourselves in our consciousness, well, there must be something interfering there. There must be something blocking, because the natural thing is every day that you're living should be expressing, you should be, something new should be occurring, you know, emerging. Not new, like and this is the thing of consciousness, it is a new observation of something that has always been there. That's also what consciousness does. It adds value to something that has always been there. So let's go with this, okay? Space and time. Can you hear me all right? Yes? Okay. Space and time. Newmans are also be neutral, which was charged. Newmans also be neutral, which was charged. I don't understand the question, Gabi.
New means. Dan moet jij even.
Gabi?
Ja, one more.
You going to the...
New means also that something is neutral what before was charged. That is also new or not? That you see it in a different perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what is new for consciousness, yeah? Because it's very different to what we think is new in existence. So let's go into that. Let's go into that. Space and time. Okay, space and time. When we are born in a very specific and unique coordinates of space and time. Okay, which no other individual, no other particular is born in those exact coordinates. So there's something unique in each expression. Now, when you are born, it's like if the global consciousness of the earth and that new element that is born, that new individual, that new biological vehicle which is born, it's like if they sign a contract. Okay, it's like if there's they shake hands. Okay, they sign a contract, and it's like because what that individual is, it's an expression of the consciousness of the earth, but to express something that has never been expressed. Okay, to express something that has never been expressed. So whenever you want to express something new, there has to be something stable which is allowing you to express something new. Okay, like, let me put it this way. You know what an anchor is? An anchor. And there's another word I'm looking for. I'm gonna have to look at a boy, yeah. In English, let me, because if a buoy, do you know what this is? A buoy, like that? Look, this is...
David, it's a buoy. It's a floating...
yes. A buoy, okay. I'm gonna use this analogy. So just imagine we got the sea, and then we got the land, you know, and the sea. And here we need something. If we have a buoy on its own, what we're gonna have is something very dynamic, It normally tends to have like a red color or something, but okay, this is the best I can do. It's gonna be very dynamic, but very unstable. So that means whenever the sea changes its current, this buoy is going to get lost. Now, if we have something which is like an anchor, okay, what we have there is this is going to give us something which is stable. And what the buoy is going to give us is a movement, a dynamic movement. Can you see that? So in space and time, what gives us the anchor? What gives us the stability? Space. Space is like the territory is the anchor. It is the stable aspect. Because if you, well, okay, let's stay there. And what makes space dynamic? What allows space to be dynamic? Time. And what we have there is, if we connect with our space, we find an anchor which allows us to have a stability. And when we connect with time, we have something which is dynamic, meaning something that is moving in an increase. Yeah. And think about this, unfoldment of time, meaning past, present, and future occurring simultaneously. Yeah. So that means that each space, for example, your body is a space, okay, which has the stability connected with the space of Earth. It is your anchor, okay? It's what is going to allow you have that stability. But think, what is time then? What is time? Time is like if it was the consciousness, it's like the consciousness of that space. So what is time doing? It's allowing for that space to express all of the version, kind of like virgin, but yeah, a version of itself. So it's sometimes I also space, I say it's like a hardware and time's like a software, okay, using it in a more computer analogy. Yeah. So you have to have a certain hardware which gives you an stability, and then the software is something that you can update, but if you see, that's something that is happening at the same time. We have a stability which is in a constant dynamic. Yeah? So think about this. Your space where you are is connected to all times. Your space is connected to the maximum past, let's say of Earth, to the maximum future of Earth in this present moment. Because as I've been explaining, and as well, this does have to do with the work of Garnier, they are occurring simultaneously. The future has it's like the future is like the last chapter of a series of Netflix, okay? And the past is like the first chapter, okay? But there's a dialogue between both of them, and in each moment that the story is evolving. Okay, so there is a direction, and there's a beginning, and there's a process. But each moment of that process is connected with the beginning and the end. And it's moving that process. So it's not a blind, this thing of science. It's not like blind. It is dynamic. It is changeable, but it isn't blind. It's not like what we are is blind to the connection with that future. Okay, that yes. Okay, I can accept that. We are blind to our connection with the future. Okay, but to say that reality is disconnected with the direction, I think that's a big leap. Yeah, I think that is, you are trying to project your blind spot onto space-time. You're generalizing, you're doing a reduction. So space is the territory where you are born, and there is a pact, there's a contract signed there. So there is something very important about that place, that continent, that country, that coordinates, where you were born. Yeah, if it was North Hemisphere, if it was South Hemisphere, if it was East, if it was West, which continent, which country, there's something important there. There's something that is transferred from the territory, so what I'm saying is that the territory of Earth has consciousness, and that is transferred through the mineral kingdom is the connection to your into your body and your cells and all that. okay? So there's something very important there. Now, you have to take into consideration the country, the continents. Well, first of all, probably the hemispheres, okay? That's pretty important to take into consideration, because the feminine calendar, we're going to be working with the hemispheres, because the feminine calendar is it's a tool which is connecting space and time together, and consciousness also, in a dynamic interrelationship. So where you were born in what hemisphere is important, and east or west, okay? Continent, country, town, so all those are important. And where is the print? Where can I find the print? In the telephone codes. In the telephone codes. That's where you find the print, yeah? Good. Now time. Now we saw the space aspect. Now let's look at the time aspect. Time aspect has more to do with your software. So not so much your hardware, not so much about your stability, okay, because time is something that, how can I say, it's unstable, but it has to be unstable. You see, time has to be unstable. Why does it have to be unstable? Because it has to be dynamic. But for there to be something dynamic, there has to be something stable. Let me put an example, okay? Let me put an example of, you know, if you have a clock, a watch, okay? So you have a watch, okay, and it's got the numbers. It's got the stable aspect. It has the numbers. And that's stable. It's always there in the background. But then you got something which is doing that click, 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 click. It's dynamic. It's moving. So what do you have there? You have something which is stable and something which is dynamic operating together. Now just imagine this clock that everything was moving. Like just imagine not only the leg things were moving, the numbers were also moving. Okay, so it'll be very dynamic, very, very, very dynamic, but very unstable. You wouldn't be able to have the possibility of contrast between stability and dynamism. So you will be very lost. You're just like, what the hell? I don't know what time it is. Everything's moving. So there's something that within us, we have to find an aspect within us which is stable. And that's what we find that in the mineral kingdom, in the inorganic aspect, in the territory. Because when I say you are connecting with, just imagine, I was born in South Africa, okay? South Africa has code 27. And within Benoni, which was 11, okay? Now, what is most important, it's not so much South Africa as only a human, you know, like a nationality or the flag, which is also an expression of unconscious, but it's kind of like, what I'm trying to connect with is the finger, not the print. Flag is a print. The culture is a print. You see, culture, traditions, print. I'm connecting, when you want to connect with your code, you're connecting with the territory. You're connecting with those minerals in that area. You're connecting with what is stable, the flag or whatever, but that's stable. And 27 is it's the appropriate print for me to connect with the quality of that finger. So, you know, it's not so much about the national anthem, which of course is going to express something from that territory, because anything that emerges from that territory is expressing a quality of earth. But fundamentally, what I'm trying to recommend you guys, if you want to reestablish a conscious connection with the pact of where you were born, you want to connect with the territory, you know, the territory of that area. And then you can also begin to understand maybe the name of the country, all the expressions, you know, the national anthem, why it has that, why it has those words. The national anthem has those words for a reason in that country. The colors of the flag have those colors for a reason. But that is still the print. I'm saying connect with the space, with the you know, that mineral, inorganic, eternal life that's there. Because before humans, we were minerals and elements of the earth, yeah? And that's where we're gonna end, and when we die, we still are participating with our minerals. You see, so that's what I'm referring to. You know, like the deep connection with the territory, and then okay, yes, you can also connect with the other expressions of it, but go to the deepest, most timeless, stable, because the expressions are going to change, the flags, all that's going to change, but the consciousness that land is holding, that's what you want to tap into, yeah. So it's like into that. So it's not so much, but then also with the history, it's interesting to see how the history expressed itself and all that. But it's all print. It's not the finger, you know. It's the expression of it. Good. Hopefully that's understood. So what we're going to see today, and for those who are asking the following, yeah, I was born here, but I live in another place. Well, that's also important for you to establish a dialogue with it. Wherever you are having a direct contact dialogue with that place of the earth, with that consciousness of that land, with that area of the global brain. So you want to be connected with it where you live also. I'm talking about directly with the inorganic minerals and all that of the land, you know. You want to have you want to have that recognition. Of course, that means if you're living outside where you were born, you're like exporting, you know, like exporting you know, for example, Argentina has very good meat, okay, so very, very good meat. So what they do is other areas of the world don't have such good quality meat, so they export it, okay? Well, if that means you are like an exportation cell, okay? It means that that area of the earth, that land needed that exportation, because land at the same time is interconnecting itself, it's interrelating itself, you know? So us as, this is something that the animal kingdom brings to earth. It's the possibility of moving minerals around, you know, but in a way that, and the human can organize that movement in a living being, So you want to be connecting with that territory, you know, fundamentally before any numbers or anything, you just directly want to be connecting with that land that's under your feet. And then the numbers are giving you a tool for you to identify its quality. Yeah. Good. So that said, now let's go with time. Okay. So time, when we were born, has to do with a particular. So it's like time adds. It makes dynamic, it adds extra value to space. It allows it to have new versions expressed. That's what time is. So time is like what updates the space. The numbers of telephone code or also the coordinates, both are important. Both are important. The coordinates are a bit more complex. I didn't want to go into that because they're a bit more complex. But the coordinates are also
David?
to see. So if you have a what do you call it? A compass. It's interesting to see the coordinates where you live because they're unique, very, very unique. Yeah? But has it frozen? Was it all right?
Yes, it's frozen.
Okay, I think it's coming back.
Okay.
Is it coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and David, I have just something to point out before you move along.
Okay.
Looking at the drawing there, the buoy, to be more accurate, some of it is submerged below the water. So if you want to show that, and then I noticed something here.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
If you take the drawing and turn it upside down, you have the stencil. You've got the water's the x-axis, and the connection to the stability is 7.
Okay, the 7 at the bottom and the 7 at the top.
Well, let's see. I mean, yes, the way you have it, you have the 7 at the bottom, sure. But I'm also seeing it.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you're at 0. The buoy's at 0 point.
It's connected to I would say this is the 0 point, yeah, because this is going to move. You see?
Okay. Well, yes. Well, okay.
But here, this is going to stay the same. It's going to stay stable.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is the thing. When you are maturing, when you are adding new value to your consciousness, it's like if your anchor is adding new buoys, which can have different connections. A buoy is the dynamic, it's also the relationship aspect. The time, so the space is going to give you a kind of hardware, but then the other one is going to give you this ability to connect with others. So the stable is this 10, and this is like the 11. Remember, 11 is how my individual is relating with others. So you add different buoy. That is kind of maturing. It's opening new possibilities of connection. But it has to be connected to the same stable area, because if not, it becomes unstable. So just imagine if you have a whole bunch of these, but you cut it from the stability. Okay, you're going to have this happens sometimes to, it's like crazy people or artists. They have these huge connectivity with the dynamic time, especially with the future a lot of times. But they cut this stable connection in the land. So it's like they've got the consciousness is very dynamic. It reaches very far, but it's cut from the stable thing. So that's when they go crazy. See, that's kind of like that is. So what we want is a consciousness which is able to renew itself, to amplify itself, to capture new ideas that go beyond the time that I'm living, but I can capture that future and install it into my space. And those are what they call pioneers. But I have a stability, but my stability isn't my country. It isn't my nation. It isn't the national anthem. It isn't the flag. It is and it's not my culture. This is another thing. Okay, culture is an expression of that land, and then it's exported to other places. But the important thing is the land. Again, because that's the stable aspect. That's the stable aspect. Good. Okay, so let me now, so we're gonna go with time now. And what mechanism do we have to see the print of the finger? Is the calendar, okay? Is to use the calendar. And the calendar, there's many calendars, and what each calendar is doing is it's like it is capturing a biorhythm of the Earth. Okay, so that doesn't mean that one calendar is better than the other. No, it's different biorhythms, different biorhythms. You know what a biorhythm is? It's like a rhythm of an aspect of life. So for example, the body has a general biorhythm, but then it has a biorhythm for the heart, a biorhythm for the bloodstream. It has different rhythms connected to a central rhythm, okay? So the central rhythm is the Earth, okay? That's the central rhythm. But then it has different speeds in, you know, it's, this is something that is very important to distinguish, that Earth is the common denominator, yeah? And its central nervous system, okay? So we could call it, that is the singular connectivity that we all have, okay? So we, at the end of the day, what do we all have in common? We are all connected to the Earth. Okay, so the central nervous system of this global organism, yeah? Now, that doesn't mean that Earth is, for example, there's no such thing as equality. Things aren't the same. There is total, we could say, inequality, but in the sense of this, in this sense, that there are different rhythms, different expressions, different, there's a diversity. Yeah. So we have the singular, then we have the plural, okay? The plural is each, you know, how that center connects with each of the, and then we have the individual. So each individual is connected with the same singular, but that singular has a plural way of expressing itself. You know, this is why I think, you know, the whole idea of communism, it's never going to work, because it's not based on natural order. Because when you see nature, you never see equality, because equality is not coherent with diversity. And when you see life is diversity. So you can't have a system which is trying to keep everything the same. It's not going to work. But it's not going to work because nature doesn't have that logic. Yeah. That's why when you try to make things equal, you actually are being unfair. You see, because things are not supposed to be equal. They're supposed to express a plural difference in each individual. Now. At the same time, said that, it has to be connected with a common denominator. Probably that is the unbalance of capitalism, isn't it? You know, this excessive individualization expression, but it's like they get lost on the common denominator. You know, they think that the individual is the common denominator, and it's not. The individual is a plural expression, but the common denominator is. So it's like 1 and 7, you know, because 7 is the common denominator. But when 7 doesn't understand, or doesn't 7 Russia, okay, is not really understanding itself with 1, okay, 1 is the individual expression. What happens? 7 is kind of like going to become a kind of dictator, saying that everything has to be the same because everything is connected to a common denominator, you see? So, but what's going to happen in this excessive individual expression, where the individual is the God, or the individual is like, which is important, but it's part. You see, but you have to also understand that that individual, self-expressed, unique, or unique self-expression. If you don't want to make it become, like disconnected, you have to see that it's connected to something which unites all that. You see what I mean? The singular, 7, singular common denominator, 7, and 1 is the different unfolded individual expressions, but connected to that 7. And there, when you have 7 plus 1, 8. 8 is synchronization. Synchronization between the common denominator and its unique expressions. So the central nervous system connected with all the different diversity of the rest of the body. 8, okay? That's a synchronization, good. Okay, well, I don't know why I'm saying this. It's just coming out. Now, the different biorhythms, yeah. Now, the calendar we are going to use is the calendar which we all connect with. Like, if I want to establish a day, a meeting, or whatever with anybody in any parts of the world, I'm not going to use the Chinese calendar. I'm not going to use the Hebrew calendar. I'm not going to use the Islam calendar and the other many calendars there is. I'm going to use this Gregorian calendar. Yeah. And if we okay, you'll say it's a Christian and all that, but try and get that out of your system and just try and think, okay, well, it seems like Earth has created a common denominator calendar, which we all use, okay? So we're gonna use that calendar, like, if you ask, probably you don't know what year it is in the Hebrew calendar, in the Chinese calendar, or you don't know. But most probably a Chinese does know what year it is in the Gregorian calendar. This is not so much about, this kind of arrogant thing of, no, it has to do with the common denominator of time, okay? But it doesn't disqualify the other biorhythms, okay? Okay, so when we see, first of all, what we have to see about time is that time is always a relationship, okay? Time is always a relationship. So when we looking at time, we have to take the relationship between Earth and the Sun and the rest of the planets, but especially Earth and the Sun. This relationship, where Earth is connecting with the Sun, and it is going around it, no? So it has a rotation and a revolution. Now, a rotation it's like if the Earth goes around itself. It is a self-referential, and that's what we call a day. Okay, a day is that 24-hour period where the Earth rotates around itself. Okay, it's like if it's looking at itself, yeah, and it's looking at itself from the point of view of the Sun and the point of view of the outside of the solar system. Okay, so like day is like it's expressing a new version, and night it is capturing a non-expressed. Okay, so night captures a non-expressed, day expresses a new version. Now, how many times does the Earth go around itself in order to have a whole view of the sun. What in English is called a revolution, which I think it's a beautiful word to put, because that's what it is. Each year is a revolution. But that is a true revolution, meaning it is a revolution of the consciousness of the Earth. And it takes 365.25. This 25 is important because it's a quarter of a day. Yeah. So 365. I explained about this, yeah? The position 3, the position 6, and negative, and the logic which connects it. 365.25. Now, if you see, the issue is that the calendar that we use uses 365, meaning that after a year, there is a mismatch of 0.25. So the second year, 365, another mismatch of 0.25. 365, another mismatch of 0.25. And then what happens, this is going to be another mismatch of 0.25. So what is done is that a day is added here. So what does this fourth year do? It synchronizes again with the appropriate time, okay? So during the first year, there is a, let's say, see how I can explain this. So there is because for you to evolve, for you to modify, to change, there has to be a bit of a non-synchronization. There has to be a bit of a mismatch. Because if everything is just perfectly synchronized, it's like it's going to be a perfect machine. So what does space-time, it creates a mechanism called mismatch. So meaning that we are never perfectly synchronized. Why is that happening? It always gives a margin of error. This is what we're going to call a margin of error. A margin of error is very important for life. Because if there was no margin of error, things would just be like a Swiss clock, 41, a design that is perfect of reality. You see, now the design is the one that is wanting everything perfect. The design, like I want it all perfect. But the problem is, if that is what's going to be governing, that's going to become robotic. It's going to become, it's going to become, there's not going to be space for the new. Think about it, where does the new come in? Through the margin of error. Can you see that? Through the margin of error, that's where the new comes in. So that's why it's so important for life not to be perfect. I know that in the negative it is perfect. I know because you're going to say, but it is perfect. Yeah, I know, I understand what you're saying. That even the error is a perfect imperfection. Yes, it's true. But you see, there's something that is always, it doesn't happen how it's supposed to happen. You know that feeling like why does space-time have that? Why does it have that kind of uncertainty? Why does it have that kind of like, that error, that mistake, that it doesn't always add up, like 1 + 1 is 2. Why does that happen? If it's such a sophisticated intelligence, because it understands in its own sophisticated intelligence that without margin of error, life would be robotic. So for life not to be robotic, it has to have a level of error, of uncertainty. There has to be mistakes, there has to be errors, there has to be Because if not, it wouldn't have that scale. How could you learn if there was no margin of error, you know? Okay, so that's what an interference is also. An interference, also known as X factor. That factor, yeah, that factor is very important. So it's weird because our design, you know, wants it perfect, like Germany, 49. It wants it perfect. It wants, you know, like it wants a design which has a perfect purpose, perfect. Okay, yeah, but it's never going to be perfect. It can't be perfect. Space-time is never going to allow something to be expressed perfectly. Never, never, because it would be stopping a new version to emerge. So anything that is expressed is always going to have margin of error. Margin of error. Okay, 0.25. Why is this important? Why is this number important? Okay. Why is this number important? Well, you see this is, Alejandra calls it the circuit of our unconscious. That is the margin of error is what we can't see, isn't it? It's like the margin of error consciousness is that aspect that I can't see. It's like the blind spot. Why is 25 so interesting? Well, because when you watching, 24 hours makes a day, doesn't it? It's like perfect. It's like a perfect synchronization. So 25 is challenging that in a way, okay? Follow me for a second. And apparently when you watching whatever, a movie or in the cinema, apparently the human brain, which is connected with the same kind of fractal of the Earth brain, apparently captures 25 photograms per second, I think it is. Yeah, 24, I'm not sure if it's per second. But well, you get the idea. 24 per second, meaning that when they put a 25, you don't see it. Okay? You don't see it, but it does go into your subconscious. That's where they did this thing. I think Disney and got into trouble, or publicists started to do it, people marketing. And in the ads, they would put, so you're watching whatever it is, and they would put in the photogram 25, like a Coca-Cola or something. Yeah? And suddenly people, the purchase of Coca-Cola in the cinema would go up very high, you know, because they installed the 25th photograph, which you didn't see it, but it sank in. So you suddenly wanted to have a Coca-Cola, you know. Okay, so it is like that aspect, that it's that photogram that I can't see. You see, I can see 24, but the 25th I can't see it. But that I didn't see, it did sink in my subconscious. I think Disney also did this with like something which is like, what the hell were they thinking? Like, this is where you see that there's this disturbed interference occurring, because it was like cartoons for children and all that. And in the 25th, they would put like a pornographic image in the 25th photogram, and they were caught doing this. So what I'm trying to say, it's the circuit of the unconscious, okay? Meaning, each year, there's something that we are not seeing. Something we are not seeing, something we are not seeing, but in the last year, we see it, okay? It like synchronizes and we see it. This is, I remember, at least in my family, there was like the urban legend, you know, with my grandmother. She said she hated leap years. I hate leap years because there's always something bad that happens in the leap year. You see, and this is a bit how I kind of see it, is that it's what you weren't able to see during these years, and it appears in positive in the leap year. Now, this photogram 25, this circuit of the unconscious, what happens if we are consciously aware and paying attention, consciously paying attention in our day-to-day life to our blind spot? If we are consciously paying attention, meaning we are living consciously, not like robotically, we're living consciously, it means that we are seeing, or we are opening to see that 025. We are the circuit of the logical circuit. So we are seeing the logic behind what is happening, or at least we are opening to see. And the logic is, like there's a meaning to why it's happening that way. And maybe I don't know the meaning, but I'm open to see it. But if I'm living things like, how can I say, not consciously, unconsciously, and I'm just like, okay, this happened to me, and let's go to the next. Oh, today I cried, today I smiled, today. But I'm not adding new lucid points. I'm not opening my 25th photogram. I'm not paying attention to, you see, life is communicating our blind spots, because the blind spot is the new version. And how does life communicate our blind spots? Through our errors. The error is very important, because the error isn't something we did bad. The error is a communication of the new version. It's like wherever you see an error, that is where we could say the global consciousness is finding a new expression through the personal consciousness. So your personal errors is actually a communication. Because if you had no errors, what would happen? It would just be a mechanic, beep, 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 beep. It would be, there wouldn't be that uncertainty, that gap through where the new can emerge. That gap where things are not under control, which are not mechanically, it's that era in your life. But the thing is that when you are not looking at your little errors, you're not looking at your little mistakes, you're not looking at your little blind spots, those begin to communicate with a higher degree, a higher, more intensively. And I guess my grandmother must have had a kind of intuitive that something was expressed in these leap years which she wasn't able to see in the other years, because she was basically just living unconsciously. She wasn't participating consciously. She wasn't like, okay, why did, so this, why did I have that, why did my electrical system break down? Or why did this error occur? This which I didn't think was going to happen this way, and it happened this way. Like, why did Trump was elected or something like that? Why did that happen? And so there's this error which is allowing a communication. So an error is something that has to be listened to and then corrected, but listened to. You see what I mean? Okay. Let's have a break now, okay? And then we'll be back, because each of these years sum up, well, if you sum up 365 plus 665 plus 665 plus 366, you have this number, which is important, which is 1,461. So after 1461, our calendar synchronizes with the relationship Earth-Sun. Okay, it's like it resynchronizes after 1461 days. This is what, well, Alejandra calls this a period of time. And what it gives is a new design to express a potential into reality. So it's an update of a new, it's like a season, you know, of Netflix. It's like the season, 1461 days to see the whole season in 4 chapters, which have 365 minutes each of them. So that's what it is. It's like a season. Now, each season brings something new to that program. So it's like a revolution, 4 revolutions. And when you have these 4 revolutions, you have a complete revolution, and which sums up in this number. Something curious is that if you sum up in the Spanish words, planet Earth, planet Mercury, planet Mars in Spanish, and each of the letter has a number, I'll try and speak about that later, and you sum them up all together, it sums up 1461. Because you see the Earth, okay, yes, it is rotating. It takes 1461 rotations around the Earth, around the Sun, but the Earth is communicating with all the system, with its brothers, sisters, and of course the Father. Yeah. So 1461 days. Now the question is, in which period were each of us born? Yeah, you see, because it's the season we are born of this Netflix blockbuster called the human evolution in its participation with evolution of Earth, of the evolution of the solar system. Yeah, because this is still talking about the human relationship. That's also important to see. So now the question is, okay, when was I born? Yeah, not only in which year, which month, and which day, in which period, and in which moments of that period. Okay, so this is going to give different scales of the moment one was born. Okay, so let's give it 10 minutes, and we'll be back with the rest. Okay. Okay, I've been talking like a crazy man. So just for you to get the sense of this analogy that I used of the finger and the fingerprints, okay? So the numbers is the fingerprint, yeah? Or language. Well, language is like numbers of the fingerprints, and language is like a photocopy of the page where the fingerprints was taken. So it's like a second distance of it, okay? Which just gives it a different function, okay? So, but for example, the telephone code is a fingerprint of a territory. Now, the territory which you are where your feet are touching, that is the finger. That's not the fingerprint. So you are directly in contact with the body, if you want, okay? It's not the for example, a number is an X-ray, okay? A number is an X-ray. The territory is the bones. It's not the X-ray, it's the bones. Okay? It's like, it's where you're in direct contact. And that connection, you have to breathe it in because it's going to give you a lot of stability. You know, the instability, I think that, well, at least I'm going to share my own process, you know, because if you are expanding consciousness, you know, so it's like consciousness is more like time and space is more like existence. Existence is stable and consciousness is dynamic. Okay. At least in my own process, if you are expanding consciousness, you better be well stable in your existence. Why? Because if you are expanding very quick the consciousness, but your anchor is not very well deeply settled, this begins to create something unstable, which that's why I say that I think that the crazy people is I think they have a lack of stability in the anchor. So it's just they are pure boys, okay? So they have a great openness to the dynamic time, but they're not kind of embodied, if you want, in the stability. And the stability is not so much the body, it is, okay, but it's the body with the territory. See, always the stability, you're going to find it in the structure, not the content. Your body is a content. The territory is the structure. So that's where you find the stability. Now, you can also find these people that are very well settled in their territory, but it's like they are very kind of, you know, it's like very stable, very, very, very stable, but they're not breathing in time, you know, they're not breathing in the dynamic aspect. So that is also, you can see something very kind of, you know, very stable, but, you know, you're like, okay, but let's put a bit of salt into this, you know, let's put a bit of time into this. So yeah. There. So yeah, so that and well, what happened to me at one point with this process, because this mechanism can create an acceleration, a very, very quick acceleration of consciousness, but it's very important at one point for me to begin to recognize the importance of establishing a relationship with the territory, which is giving me stability. Okay? That relationship is a relationship trying not to make it symbolic, trying not to make it metaphoric, try not to make it cultural, especially. Just make it direct. It's like, look, I'm going to put a thing which is interesting. It's Spanish, but I guess you guys will get it, yeah? And now I'm going to rub this out. You see, well, apparently the center of the Earth, it rotates, okay? The reason why the Earth rotates is because in the center it has mainly iron in the center, which is in liquid state, okay? And then it's a solid aspect. So this allows it to move around, okay? So iron is very important for the Earth to be able to have its self-referential rotation. Now, iron is also very important for us in our blood system, for it to transport oxygen. And iron, if you look in the table, what you call it? The tabla periódica, the periodic table, you call it in English, the periodic table. If you look at the symbol of iron, it's this. It's Fe, like that. This word, if you take this as a word in Spanish, fe means faith, like religious faith, religious faith. And so another thing is when you connect with a territory, not a mystical kind of thing, like you see, just make it, just realize, like naturally realize it. I'm sure it's happened to all of you. Something at a point, you just see it, you just kind of connect with the land. You just sensorially connect with, maybe the word you use is the energy field of the land, okay? I'm talking about that connection, and that gives you a stability wherever you are, okay? And that also gives an exchange of information of that land with your land, yeah, with the structure and the content. Now, faith, as we've known it in the religious sense, it's faith in some kind of abstract entity, which is not embedded in existence. It's something out over there, you know. It's something that is dissociated. It's like looking from. So I have to have faith in something which is not embodied. It's not condensed in this existence. It's something etherical, you know. Probably Molly and Jeff is with a couple of those dudes there. So it's like faith in an angel, faith in some God, faith in, it's an abstract faith, you know. Now let's change it this way. Now let's take faith in the iron. So it's like a faith which is embodied in, it's grounded in the central aspect of the earth, and which is so important for our, in our blood. Blood is mainly water, isn't it? It's like the water. And what is the iron? It's something which allows the transportation of oxygen. So we can begin to have faith, but based on the mineral faith, meaning that my minerals of my individual vehicle is connected with the minerals of the whole earth. So I'm connected in a very real sense, not in an abstract sense. So my faith goes in the iron that connects me with the with the global consciousness of the earth and my individual consciousness. See? And through that mineral connection, there is also, and the water which is conducting that, so important, the water, isn't it? In the superficie of the earth. So the mineral is a conductor, the water captures it, and in my water and in my iron and the minerals in general, I'm connected with the water and the iron of the global consciousness of the earth. So I'm not just this packet disconnected. I am a unit interconnected with the global system, and I have faith, but this faith. I have faith that there's a structure that is sustaining my participation, but it's a faith that is not in a, you know, dismembered entity in the clouds. It's a faith that is, I'm touching that faith. I'm intimately connected with that faith. So faith in the sense that I know that I can't do everything on my own, you know, like, because there's a structure that is nurturing my content, my individual vehicle, okay? So another interesting thing is that your blood is red, okay? Your blood, your blood is red. And red in Spanish means, red means net. It means interconnected, a net, like internet. Well, red is a net. So it's like in the deepest aspect of, you know, of your blood, I have, it's red because also I'm connecting to this net, it's the red, with this, but with this faith, which of course, the derivation, you know, the derivation is recognizing that there's this aspect of consciousness or this aspect of space-time that is containing me, nurturing me, interconnecting me, and challenging me. So it's like, of course, there is a level of faith in the sense that David is not going to be able to do everything because there's a structure containing it. But that structure that I'm choosing to link with, okay, that consciousness I'm choosing to link with is something that is directly participating in this reality. It's not a coward God that created something and just kind of, you know, stayed above there. No, where I place my faith is in that consciousness that condensed that consciousness of emptiness, but condensed itself into this experience of, you know, challenge, of difficulty, of, and you know, has its scars and it has its that's where I'm linking with, you know. So my iron, the earth's iron, my blood, the water, the sea, red, interconnected net, iron, it's the faith in iron, you know, that links us with the same minerals, which is an inorganic conductor of consciousness. If you think about it, all the other levels of life is just it's like a upgraded version of minerals. If you think about it, it all comes from inorganic. So that is that, like the base consciousness. So that's the thing, yeah. Good. So 1,461 days. Now, this is important because this is made out of 4 years, okay? Now, these 4 years, each of them have a quality. And this quality has to do with the mechanism, a kind of mechanism of how things evolve in 4, okay? And, well, the first year is, it's the name that Alejandra calls it is assume, to assume. What is to assume? In what sense? I think that's a translation. I'll look at it. It's to assume, I'll give you the explanation, is to assume that position, to assume where you are in that moment in time, to assume, it's like to position yourself, to decide to position yourself. I assume this position. So that year is to assume a position. This has a lot to do with the quality, mineral quality. Because what assumes, and you know, it's like involved in where it is, it's the mineral, okay? So I'm trying to also tell you that each of these years has a different quality, yeah? And you'll see now. The second year, Alejandra calls it to assimilate. It's a year of assimilation. This has more to do with the vegetable, the plant kingdom. Assimilation. Okay, so first you assume a position, you know, okay, I'm here, this is where I am. It's to assume the limits, to assume where you are positioned, where your limits are, and to be honest with where you are. This is to assimilate that position. Now, 3 is challenge, the year challenge. This is where we are in desafía, it's called in Spanish. Challenge, okay. Now, once I've assumed the position, I assimilate that position, now I challenge it. Why do we have to challenge it? Because we have to add value. We have to challenge, like, To recognize where you are is not to define where you are. It is to know, it's like I have to know how much money I have in my bank account. And once I assume that money, I assimilate it, you know, like I assimilate it. Because one is to assume where you are and one is to assimilate. But now you challenge, so now you use that money. This has more to do with the animal. The challenge of movement, of moving that around, yeah? So, so I move that money. I see how much it is I have. Let's put it in economical terms. I see how much I have in the bank. I assimilate that, and then I challenge, I invest, okay? And this is going to give us like an integration. Four is like an integration. It's called año decide. I'll explain why, the decision. Yeah? Decision has to do more with the human kingdom, a decision. So the challenge is to move to that challenge, and then the decision is, how do I manage that challenge? How do I decide to interpret it? See, it has the human aspect. It's the last aspect. I assume where I am, assimilate where I am, I challenge it, you know, and each period is going to have a challenge. And then last year, I do two decisions. How I manage that year, how do I interpret it? How do I make sense of it? How does it increase my awareness, my human awareness of it? And then the next decision is the decision to open to a new period. So once you integrate a period, you have to open to a new period. So that's also a decision. It's a decision to open to the next. It's like once you are good at something, you decide not to just stay there. You decide to open to improve something else. So it's like you're learning how to cook, okay? And first you assume where you are in your ability to cook. You assimilate that. You assimilate, okay, I have this level. Then you challenge. So challenge is when you are trying something you've never tried. You see what I mean? So but you have the stability of knowing where you are. You're not what you call lying, self-deceiving yourself. You're not deceiving yourself. You're challenging yourself, okay? Because you know where you are. You challenge, and once you challenge, you begin to learn from that. And here you give it an interpretation, okay? Because that's something that the animal doesn't do, the plant doesn't do. It's the human. It adds an interpretation to all that. And then once you're very good at that dish, what you do, you make a decision to go to another level, okay, to another dish, we could say. Good. So each of us are born in one of these years. So we born more in a mineral year, a plant year, an animal year, or a human year, or a year to assume position, to assimilate, to breathe in that position and the context of that position, to challenge it, and to make a decision how to interpret it, how to interpret the past, and how to open to the future. Okay, that would be like the last year. It's an integration and a disintegration. Why is it an integration? Because you have to, it's the point where you've seen all the chapters and you make a meaning out of it. But then you have to disintegrate it again because you have to open to something new. Yeah? It's like, look, assume Molly, who likes to do pottery stuff, yeah? Assume, what mineral do you have? Like, what ingredients do you have? You know, like what you have clay, a lot of clay? Well, okay, you got clay, great. You don't have any, you have that clay with that quality, okay? Then you assimilate it. So assimilate it already is you're processing that clay, you're touching it, you're getting to know it, you're seeing its qualities, And then you go on the challenge to begin to make something out of it, add a new value to that clay that you have. Yeah. And then at the end, you make an interpretation of the whole process. It's like the purpose of the journey. When you arrive, you know, when you end the journey, you go back home and you start to realize things that you didn't realize during the journey at the end of it. You know, you start making connections that you weren't connecting while you're doing the whole process. That is like that. And then you're open to disintegrate whatever you made, yeah, or open to create something new. So you made a cup, but now you want to make a whole tea set. You just got a cup. So the next thing is you're open to make a teapot. Okay, so add value. So it's a disintegration that doesn't destroy what came before. It disintegrates. It doesn't. You don't always make cups. You're not just. I'm very good at cups, so I make cups. I make cups. I make cups. Okay, well, that means you're not evolving. You're not escalating. Yeah. Okay. So this this calendar. We are in the year now 2019, which is, in which period is 2019? In the period 505. We already, where the logic started, for example, the period that the logic started was the period that went from 2013, 2013 to 2016. Okay. This is where the logic started, 2013. And it was the period 504. 504. Okay, Argentina is code 54. Okay. The unconscious of identity, the logical structure of the design. And see that when you have a zero, what the zero is doing, because all this emerged out of Argentina, okay, this work, and that was not a coincidence. Okay, so when you have a zero, that is a possibility. It's like a zero is like oxygen. Have you seen oxygen in the symbol of oxygen is it's an O, isn't it? It's like a zero. It's like you breathe in something new. A zero can renew things. Yeah? It's like when you reach 9, what do? You add a zero, yeah, and then you renew the count. 10, 11, or 100, you know? So you add a zero and then you renew the count. So it ends one thing and it begins another. It's like it's a turning point between something done and something to be done. You know, like, so it's like an update of the 54. Yeah, the updates of the 54. Good. When we answer, okay, now I'm going to have to talk in a general kind of. Let me take a photo of this. Man, I didn't think I was going to take so long to explain. I really miscalculated the time with this. Okay. Now, it's very important, the millennials. And you know, like 0 to this first millennial, yeah, historically, which sets the kind of like the basis. This millennial, which is like 10 is a recreation. So this is like, I normally call this period here, like the one that goes from 0 to 9, any 0 to 9, I call it a gestation. Like 9 months, you know, the 9-month period and all that. This one, I call it a creation. Okay, now this is different, a gestation to a creation. Because now it's born. It's like, this is establishing the structure, and this is building upon the structure. You see the difference? Like when you are doing the gestation, it is giving the baby all the necessary developments for it to begin to be able to live outside. Yeah. So this is like a first period of gestation. This is of creation. Now 2000 is very interesting, right? This period here. Okay, I'm going to go very far away in time. This is different. This is different because this is a recreation. This has to do with something which is like building upon what's already created. And the year 2000, when we enter into 2000, is where when we begin the period 500. Okay, you understand this thing of the period? You have to divide it by 4. And for example, let's see. If I take 2019 divided by 4, you have 504.75, okay? That means we are in the period 505 because we have gone over 504 and we are, like when we end this period, we are ending the period 505. 505 seasons, yeah, that this calendar has captured in the evolution of humanity with Earth. Yeah. 2000 is a very interesting moment because that's where the 500 ends. So it's like entering in a different kind of what some people call in the 5th dimension, but the 5th dimension consciousness, you know, the consciousness of the 5th dimension. And this starts in the 2000. Do you remember the whole thing of the 2000 that they said the computers, we're going to go crazy and planes are going to fall off the sky, and you know, it was like this they call the 2000 effect. Remember that? The 2000 effect. Well, I think unconsciously something was perceived that something very new was going to come, a recreation. This a very important date because I want to also situate where we are. Where we were born was in all of us, except somebody is very, very, very old or very, very, very young, we were all born in the same century. Okay, which is in the creation period, but in a specific point, which is creating a purpose. Creating a purpose. Or recognizing a purpose. It's creating the purpose for a recreation. Because whenever you reach 9, you are going to create something new. You see, like 9, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 is the purpose of 1, of the beginning. It's the end, it's the purpose of the beginning, 9. But after 9, what do you have? Does it stop there? No, 10. So 9 is integrating the end of one period, and it's opening a new period. This century is very important because it is establishing all the aspects that were going to be needed for the recreation, like the electronic revolution, internet. It's like it was establishing all these mechanisms, which in 2000 was going to be needed for its recreation. Okay, because the recreation has to do something. This is like the creation has to do with a baby. Okay, a child. It's like it's discovering. It's a recreation has to do more with a kind of adult attitude. Yeah, where I am seeing what has been created in my life, but I'm recreating it. I've already gone through experiences, yeah? And now I'm it's like a new birth, a recreation, okay? So we are born in a moment of time which is going from one millennial to another. It's like it's connecting one millennial with the other. The end of one, which is seeing its purpose, and the beginning of a new one, which is transferring that purpose, yeah, like 9 is like a spermatozoid, into a new moment of recreation. A specific important moment is this date here. Okay, now let's go with the dates. Do you remember, you guys always I said that there's always these 3 positions occurring in space-time, like particular position, a relative position, and an absolute position. Particular is like, for example, the cell. The absolute is the organism, the body, and the relative is the like what type of cell it's going to be. Okay, it's relative because my body is made out of many cells, but each are different. So relative is what creates the differentiation. Absolute is what creates the common denominator. Okay, so when we see a date, these things are happening. So the year 2001. Is like the common denominator, okay? Now we have the day of that year, the 11, and then we have a month. I know I put day, month, year. I know in America they change it, okay? Now, I just want to see the frequency of this day because I know it's important. I have to talk about that also. Probably we'll be seeing a lot of this stuff in the oh, today's the 1st of September, look at that. Wait a sec. This is a very important moment. Look, 2001 is the recreation of 01. It's the recreation of dimension 1. Which telephone code is 01, you know, like which continent, if 2 is Africa, 3, 4, Europe, etc., 1 is North America. Okay. So it's like a recreation of that, of 1. Now, that is the end purpose, the recreation of 1. Now, the intermediate is 9, a purpose. It's a purpose, 9. A purpose is like a spermatozoid, okay? So, 9, which is the code of 9? If you look in the world, it's the Middle East. So, like I said the other day, most of the religions emerge out of the Middle East because a religion is a mystical way of trying to offer purpose of why we exist. 9 does that. It is allowing us to see the purpose. It's a purpose, and that's basically what religions do. It's like, but the attackers, the ones sending the message for this recreation, were from that part of the world, yeah, of this 9. And very interesting, the day 11, because 11 is like the relationships of 1 with each other, but also is like, I see it as like the 2 towers. And 9 is like that plane hitting, okay? And it's hitting a symbol, it's hitting a symbol. I know that I'm trying, you see, because probably if you see this culturally or like in a nationalistic way, probably it's going to sound a bit detached, you know, but you see, this is the era. This is an error, but it's a communication. Probably it was a very intense communication, but it definitely was a communication. And definitely it created a recreation of one. And definitely began something there. Something like, for me, this period of the recreation, that was a very, very important point. And if you see the day, like, no, because now I have to explain this. Okay. Okay. So basically, the day, the month, and the year that you're born is talking about this particular relative and absolute, okay? Position. So the particular is the day, the month is the relative, and the year is the absolute, like the general meaning. Yeah? Now, if you take a year, okay, because a year really is 365 days, okay? And just like, for example, I was born on the 21st of March, 1983. 21st of March, 1983. Now, okay, that is the calendar expression, but if I see it just in days, it's like that's the way that humans organize it, okay? But if I just see it in days, I was born on the 80th day of the year 1983. On the 80th day, meaning 80 days went past, okay? Now, this is what we call the positive frequency, the positive frequency. It's positive because it's already been expressed. 80 days have been expressed. Now, the negative frequency is that which has not been expressed of the year, but it's, remember, the negative is what is moving the positive, in the sense, the apple is what is moving the direction of the roots. Okay, the roots, okay, is positive, it's manifested, but the trunk, where are the roots going towards? Why are the roots, where is it moving towards? There's a negative. There's a invisible but very real direction. Okay, so this is the negative is the 285 in my case. 80, 285. My positive frequency, 80. Positive has more to do about how does your consciousness, because time has to do with the software, okay? It has more to do with the buoy than the anchor. It's the way of moving. So the position is space, the movement is time. So how you position yourself, space, has to do with where you're born. How you move in life has to do with when. Okay, with the when, not with the where. Okay, so, but together you have stability and something which is dynamic. Good. You could say also that space where you were born has to do more with your body connection, your existence, and time has to do with your consciousness connection, how you process consciousness, okay? So you have that stability and you have something dynamic. So when I'm relating with somebody, I'm relating with a space-time, something which has an anchor and something which has a dynamic aspect of relationship, of processing. Now, the positive frequency of this day is 254. Circuits 454, okay, which in territory is Argentina. And the negative of this day is 111. Okay, so 111. So it's like, how can I say? It's all the points in time of a life. So, for example, an individual has a past, a present, and a future. So it's like the past, the present, and the future of that life. And this was the negative. yeah, and this was the positive. And Argentina, in this year, Argentina, not long after, a couple of months after, went into its most severe, I know that Argentina is always in an economical crisis, but this was like very serious economical crisis, which was called the Corralito, okay? What I'm trying to show here is that there's a connection between dates. There's a connection. For example, there's also another connection, let me see, with Holland. There's a connection between Argentina and Holland in dates also. I think it's 25th of February, let me see. No, when is it? Yeah. Like, for example, the day the day 54 of the year, in negative, it's minus 311. Okay, there is some sort of affinity of Holland with this information. There is this affinity with it, which is kind of weird. Like, why Holland? Why Holland? You know, like, why not many other countries in Europe? Why Holland? Well, you see, there are like interrelationships between codes. Certain codes that have a type of relation, like Russia and USA together. It's like individuality and totality. There's a relationship there. And if individuality and totality are disconnected, you have a fight. You have this what I'm talking about. So for each of us, it's very interesting the following. All right, maybe I'll take a photo. So I guess the space frequencies, it's easy to get it. Your country, the city, the telephone codes of those areas. Now with time, what is interesting is the following. I would say the following are interesting. Let me use myself as an example. First, of course, which year? Which year? 1983. The year is very important. Yeah? It's like in this series of which we are using the calendar to see a certain moment, yeah, of a birth of a purpose of humanity, which is the whole Jesus Christ born and all that. Jesus Christ, if you put in the Spanish word, Jesús Cristo, it's 77, this is Jesus, 88, this is Christ. So it's opening 7 to synchronize something, you know? Very interesting. So, the year. First, I'm situated in this period of creation. All of us are going to be there in the millennia. And in the moment of 1900, which is the end of that millennia and the beginning of a new one. So it's kind of like, it's like a virus, a virus in the good sense. A virus, really what it is, biologically, it's not so much an enemy virus. Virus is new information, really. A virus is new information. You see that virus can't be alive until it has a bacteria, because virus is just like a negative. It's just like a pure negative. But if you don't have, it's like a seed. But if you don't have land, that seed can't be alive. It can't bring that information into life. So it needs a bacteria The negative needs a positive. So the virus installs itself into the positive, and it does kill. Why does it kill? Because you see, to install a new version, a lot of times the machine has to update its hardware. Like the negative is a software, okay? The positive is a hardware. If you install the software into a type of hardware, it could break down the computer. But in life, what happens is that a lot of times death is just a learning process. You see, it's not like it's trying to kill it. It's actually trying to update it. It's like a new information. Okay, so 19 is like a new virus. A new virus. A new, or let's put it in a more friendly way, a new spermatozoid, okay? It's like 1 in 9, you know, like it's a new spermatozoid. Because when you're born here, you are focused about, okay, integrating all this, okay, you are, but you also like the people who are born in this year are also in an anticipation for this new recreation, yeah. That's why a lot of, for example, in my case, I know that it's like my antenna is more prepared, it's more in tune with the moment we're living now than the moment it was born and developed. I feel more close to young people today who are born in the 2000s than people of my generation. Why does this happen? Because always when a generation is born, there are certain cells that are born for conservation and others which are born for innovation or anticipation. It's normal. Conservation cells, they give stability. If like every cell that is born is the anticipation, it's a Tesla, it's not stable. That's not stable. You need conservation cells. So people who are just fit in where they were born and those people who fit in, those who don't fit in are normally tend to be anticipation cells, where they tend to have a shit kind of teenagehood, and then the older they get, the greater life is. Well, with the conservation cells, it's like the other way around. It's like if they enjoyed the youth period, but then the adulthood is kind of like, ooh, you know, because they feel out of tune with where they are, you know, because they were more anchors. They were not so much boys, okay? So creation. So all of us here are in that moment, yeah? But it is this kind of connecting with a millennial that ends and a millennial that opens, okay? So it's like a door, it's like a door. The century is like a door, yeah? And a lot of things had to be cleansed, if you want, for there to be an open, it's like a crisis that had to go through, also to open to this, to recreation. It's like cleaning up some of the shit look, gestation is when the builders are building like the structure, you know, the wall and all that. But then on that structure, okay, they build the house, they create the house. Okay. First millennia, the structure. Second millennia, the house. Third millennia is once the house is created, I recreate on it. So I update, but it's already, the bases are there. The house is built, it's created. Now I recreate it. Okay, good. So there were certain inventions that had to appear here, you know, certain inventions that were very good for the installments of this. If you think about it, from 2000 onwards, like radical inventions haven't been really created. It's just been recreating what was invented, like sophisticating, but it already was installed here, really. Robotics, installed here. Internet, installed here. The only thing, the recreation accelerates the renewal of those things. But like really breathtaking inventions, not really. you know, like kind of really new stuff that it's sophisticating the recreation of this, okay? Another thing, in this 500 period, in this fifth dimension entry, technology is acceleration. I'm trying to explain so many things, I think, that it's probably, there's going to be a lot of things that I'm not going to be able to go into, but there's some audios, some transcripts of Alejandra, which are very good, because she talks about this entry into the fifth dimension, which also has to do with like a kind of fifth, you know, the first kingdom, second kingdom, third kingdom, fourth kingdom, and the fifth. What does the fifth do? It is like the unconscious blind spot which renews the other four. So it is an acceleration. And technology, the appearance of technology in a very accelerated way and all this type of stuff. The thing is that the stability is not on the fifth, it's on the first, on the minerals. That's where the stability is. So if we're going too fast, but very unstable, because this is what's happening to humans. It's like they are evolving in the dynamic area very fast, but they're not anchored in the kind of, they're not anchored. They disconnected with the mineral, the plants, and the animals, which are this kind of anchor sequence. They're just evolving very, very quick on the interpretation, on the human. Okay, so creation. In this 19, this new purpose, seeing the purpose of what occurred and opening a purpose of, you know, what's to come, yeah. And then the 83. So it's like in this, what part of it is important? Well, 83 has to do with there's a lot of people who are friends of mine in this process of the logic, and are very involved here in Argentina with the logic, and they're all born in 1983, which is very curious. Like, and there's no other people close to me in that. It's like, or you know, they're pretty much older people, but there's this kind of group of friends. They're like, my wife is 1983 also. I'm 1983, and we're very close, like very connected. 1983, and I do guess that it is an interdimensional synchronization of the perception. And that resonates a lot with me, like an interdimensional connectivity of the antenna, of the neurological perception. Not just mind stuff, no, antenna, capturing potentials that go beyond my brain, but are captured in it. So it's interdimensional. It's many dimensions captured. Yeah. Okay. Now, this year is in a period which is 494. And it's on the third year. So remember, the first year, mineral, assume. Second year, plant, assimilate. Third year, challenge, animal. This is where my year ends. 4, decision, like interpretation, human. I'm here in this challenge. In the period 494. Yeah. Okay. Now, as you can see, the time has a bit more complexity. Huh? On which day was I born? The 23rd was the AT. This is also very important. My positive frequency is 80. My negative frequency is 285. Okay. So it would be good for each of you guys to kind of look into this, yeah? Put the year, like kind of go into these steps, and just, it's a way of positioning your appearance in time. So with where you were born, it's the place you were born. But in what moment of time, in what level of the process, what moment of the process are you appearing in this journey of Earth? Yeah? And not only of Earth, in the human participation with Earth. In the human parts, because Earth is going to use a different type of calendar, yeah, which we can't even grasp. So this is still about a sequence of the human appearance. So you're still seeing, this is a kind of like the human evolution in this global evolution. But they are connected, yeah, definitely connected. So this will be a way of arranging it. Of course, the day 21. Of the third month, okay? Also seeing that, this is the particular position, this is the relative position. Yeah? Has to do with the perception again. 21, 12, 21, I'll explain that some other time, but it has to do with like a construct of the basis. There's 3 types of contract: 30, 21, and 12. Okay, but I'm not gonna go into it because it's gonna be too much. And also, it's very interesting not only seeing your numbers, but seeing the people who are very related with you, their numbers too. Because you see, when you are talking with someone, you're talking with a space-time, and when you're talking, you are linking those frequencies together. You're creating a symbiotic, you're creating a field between both of them, like a consciousness between both of you. Yeah? So you sum them up. So I'm going to use my wine for that because it's very interesting. I'm just going to take a photo of this. Because you begin to find very interesting connections. Because what you're going to begin to see with the numbers, when you begin to give it time, you begin to just observe them, you start to see synchronicities in a very kind of interesting way. Yeah? Well, always the person, your partner or your best friend or your mother, well, people who you feel are very much linked to you, there's tends to be in a like a synchronicity of frequencies. Okay, so my wife, for example, she was born on the 4th of December in 1983. Her positive is 338, and her negative is 27. Okay. First of all, 27 is South Africa. Okay. So I'm 27, but I'm in positive. I'm a territory 27, and she's linking with a negative 27. Now she is born in an area in Argentina, of course. Yeah, in her space she's 54 in Argentina, but in an area which is 261. The coordinates of where this is like the coordinates of where I was born is south, I'll have to look at that. Well, it's 26, the longitude, 26 degrees, 01 minutes, 261. So this has to do also, her place of birth also is connected with mine. Now, when we do the difference between our positive, let me sum that up. Yeah, it's 258. 258, 338 minus 18 is 258. I want to make sure, 258. Now, 27 South Africa, 258. 258 is Mozambique. It's Africa, Mozambique. 261 is Madagascar in Africa. And my best friend is living now in 258 in Mozambique. So if you look at this area of the world, you got South Africa here. Okay, this is Africa. Not very well drawn, but you got South Africa here, 27. You got Mozambique here, 258, and you've got Madagascar here, 261. And it is like this interaction, which is occurring in this territory, is kind of happening in the relationship I have with my wife. I'm 27 positive, she's 27 negative. I was born in coordinates 261, she is born in Mendoza 261. The difference between both of us is 258, which is Mozambique, where my best friend is living. Now, my best friend, like my daughter, she was born when I had 10,777 days of life. Okay, well, this is other stuff appearing, okay? But when Emma, my daughter, is born on the 21st of September, I was born on the 21st of March, which is equinoxes, both of them, okay? Well, I was 10,777 days. Now, I don't know this, but I use 777. Like, for example, my email is Universal Perspective 777. It's like the 3 sevens, okay? The 3 positions of that 7. And the thing is, with Emma and my best friend in Mozambique, they are exactly, we see the frequencies, the positive frequencies, they're exactly 100 days apart between both of them. So this is the thing is that I'm trying to just share a synchronicity, but one thing is to share it, and one thing is when you begin to see it and relate it with your life, and you begin to see that, oh shit, things are really interconnected. Things are like synchronized. But we're not always able to see the synchronicity because we don't have the language. We can see the print, but we don't have the system to identify it with the finger. You see, if you have the print and you see the print, you can't identify it with the finger. You have to have a mechanism which translates and says, oh, this belongs to this person. So this is what this begins to open, that dates and codes of places, they are not by chance. There's a whole impersonal consciousness linking and connecting things together. Yeah. Well, this is other. Another date that's important is your conception date, which is like the 9 months before. Well, I'm not going to go into so much detail, but basically what I'd like to express with all this is that with this concept that numbers are a language which allows to see the print of the thumb or the fingers of the consciousness of the earth, and for us humans to have mechanisms to link and to see through it, yeah, and just begin to open to see these synchronicities. To begin, I think, names are important also. Like, yeah, names are also important. Also, language, especially I especially see it in the Spanish language, but it must happen in all the languages. The only thing is that the Spanish language is the one that I'm most familiar with, in the sense that the words are saying something that come from something a lot deeper than just a human convention of a dictionary. Okay, they again are fingerprints, and they are leaving prints for us to recognize something a lot deeper, but probably we are just opening to see we normally see language as just in a conventional sense, like it's words for us to understand each other. Of course, it has that, but it's not only words to understand each other, it is fingerprints of space-time consciousness, of Earth's space-time consciousness. There's something that is expressed through that has a deeper source than just we agreed on words or we agreed on telephone codes. Okay, that is like the positive manifestation. But what about the negative purpose? It's like if you just see the roots, but you can't see the process in the negative, which is going towards the apple, you just see roots. You're gonna not see that there's a deeper purpose hidden in those in that. Okay, so you're just seeing like the tip of the iceberg. This is a way of opening our neurology to something which goes deeper. And it goes, of course, to a kind of consciousness that transcends our rationality. But that doesn't mean it's irrational. It means that you have to open your antenna to different dimensional connections. And your life, like Laura was sharing, your life is the one that begins to show you those connections. Your mind can't even imagine how the hell could that be, that the day that this person died was exactly like all these series of connections that occur. But your life, like for this not to be just an interesting theory or a belief, you say, okay, this is a good tool, I like it, I'm interested, I'm going to be open to it, but let the numbers in my reality talk to me clearly, not creating, like clearly. When I see 10,777, I saw this after I made that email. I didn't do it before. I saw it after, and I said, oh shit, yeah. And when I see my life, the 3 countries I've lived in, which is, after South Africa, yeah, which is 34, Spain, 44, Scotland, the United Kingdom, 54, Argentina, I've been looking at the design through all its angles. Yeah. So, and there's a meaning why I was looking at that. The thing is that my future knew it. In that moment, I didn't even know I was connected to a purpose, moving my, my existence. I just was unconsciously unfolding. Now, what is all this about? What this makes it interesting? You begin to have a conscious participation of, like little filtrations of the direction of the fruit, telling you little purposes that you recognize at the moment it's happening, or not normally at the moment, but very shortly after you look and say, okay, that's why that happened, that's why that happened, that's why that happened. That's why the roots went first, that's why the bark went after. It wasn't like this blind thing occurring. There was this negative consciousness, okay, moving this direction, yeah, and time allows us to have a negative access. Can you see that? You can go to 2025, and you can begin to see, okay, what period is that in? So it has not prediction, anticipation, very different. Prediction from anticipation. Prediction is you want to control the events of the future. No. If you're going to want to use this to control the events of the future, you're not understanding your position. You're trying to control a process that the process is controlling you. No, it's an anticipation. Anticipation is, it's like you begin to smell the direction, not the events that are going to occur, the direction, where it's going towards, okay? So, and that is beginning to have a dialogue with your present, okay? So in the moment we are right now, 25th, in the period we are, let's look where we are now. It is this 2017 to 2020. And it's in this, of course, it's in the recreation, but it's in the period 504. Meaning 505, sorry. Meaning when 2020 ends, we have integrated this whole season, 505. Something interesting occurring, because we're in the year 2019, yeah? Which is the third year of this, so it's in the year challenge. It's in the animal year, it's like in the challenge. And if you see, 5-5 is Brazil. 5-5 is Brazil, 5-5. It's also in Spanish the word reality. If you take the word realidad, it sums up 5-5, meaning that reality is constructed by an impersonal consciousness. Okay, so, and it's constructing from the maximum to a minimum, so from a past to a future. But what is construction? But the thing of 5 is that it's not visible. It's an impersonal consciousness. So an impersonal consciousness, it's what's constructing reality, the visible. Now, we're in this year challenge, and look what's happening in Brazil with the Amazon kind of the fires in Amazon. Like Brazil is hugely important, the Amazon area, because it's, like they say, the lungs of it's where we breathe, okay? So what could be more of a challenge to burn, yeah, the lungs, for the lungs to be burning? Now understand that from the past, the challenge is something which is threatening, okay? From the future, the challenge is something which is innovating. the thing is that that challenge, which is a crisis, has the opportunity of updating something. So it's, remember the 0 is an update of 55, Brazil. Yeah. In the year 2019, the challenge, the challenge position, yeah? Period. And we, next year, we're going to be integrating 505 and we're going to be opening to 506. Yeah, that'll be the next period coming, 506. Good. Well, basically, now this is where it starts to sound like crazy talk, because it really touches a trans-rational expression of things. But what can I say is that you don't have to believe, but you do have to be open, because if you're not open, you see, you're going to try fit in, see, because one thing is your capacity of your reality to process neurologically life, okay? And another big difference is how life processes its consciousness. Big difference in the sense that the way that our brain can capture consciousness, make sense out of consciousness, is limited. So when you want to connect with something that goes beyond those limits, you're going to have to break the possibilities of your mental rationality. That doesn't mean to go irrational, no. It means that there's an aspect of your mind that has to be open. Yeah. I call it the 53. 53. Your mind, your neurological consciousness has to be open to the brainless consciousness. And see that when that occurs, it transforms, it brings connections that sometimes you couldn't even imagine in your mind. Now, it seems like the way that we've been operating is bottled inside our brain. The way that we manage and process information is just about, it's not about connecting with the field. It's only about connecting with information. So that is the aspect of 3 that is just, it's just consuming information. Which is not, there's nothing wrong with that, because consuming information gives it parameters. But there has to be another aspect of the mind that has to have an open to another connectivity, that it's not contents, it's not information, it's this logical consciousness. And it's like if it's being blocked, like if an antenna has been locked in itself, and it can only, it's like if a computer without internet. Okay, this is internet and this is the computer. Internet, this is the computer. Okay, internet, global consciousness. My computer it captures an aspect of that global consciousness and it projects it into my screen. Okay, now what happens if your computer has no internet? You locked in your mind, isn't it? You are castrated in that connection. So this is, you locked, because your mind is not open to the internet. Good. 53 is Cuba. Okay. And Cuba is, I think it shows it in its frequency, this aspect here. It's like this closed, okay, Okay, Marceline. Excellent. Take care, and I'll be sending the recording, and I'll try organize this meeting for us to do this integration to wrap up the whole course. Yeah. And if you see the where the whole thing started of this 53, blocked 53, yeah, and something that expressed it was this guy Castro, isn't it? Castro comes from castrar. Castrar is to castrate. I think it's that way in English also, isn't it? Castro is like when you cut the balls of a bull, you castrar. See, it's like this island which is surrounded by water, but it's locked in itself. It's not connected. So it's locked. And it doesn't allow like this connectivity to occur in between the impersonal and the personal. So this is just another thing. The unlock is 3-5. This is the lock, this is the unlock. Okay, 3-5. The meaning. 5 is not going into your mind, but what happens if your mind can open to 5? Okay, if your mind is able to say, okay, maybe there is a consciousness that goes beyond my personal, what makes sense to my personal consciousness. There's a whole other logic that goes beyond my logic. And if I can connect with that logic that goes beyond my logic, then my logic can participate with it. Okay? And there could be this dialogue between the earth consciousness 5 and the antenna consciousness 3. So we have the Wi-Fi and we have the computer with the internet habilitated, you see? And what's interesting is that not long ago, they started to open internet in Cuba. Not long ago. Pretty like certain years ago. So probably there's something unlocking there also, yeah. But it takes its time. It takes its time. Yeah. Remember the whole 2012 thing? That was the last year of the 503rd period. It was from 2011. No. 2019, no, I'm talking about 9, I think, yeah, to 2012. Remember the 21st of December 2012, the whole a new thing's going to begin. Well, it was the 503rd period. And you see how important it is for this to occur, an opening between the impersonal and the personal, for us to have a 504, where we can reconfigure the design. And now we're going to 505. Going through. So, this is as good as I could kind of express it, but it's just very interesting, this mechanism, this possibility of seeing in a different way numbers, dates, countries, and all that, probably from a different perspective, which increases and enriches the perspective we live through. Yeah. So it's like, how is the perspective of the internet connected with my computer? It's not only about using my computer, what it has inside it. It's about opening to new things. And when I can open to new things in the internet, I can download new things onto my computer that weren't there. You see how it works? So if my antenna 3 is open to the internet 5, there can begin to become a process where they are mutually transforming themselves, because from my computer, I can also change an aspect of the internet. This is how the structure connects with the content, but the content changes also the structure. It's a mutual interaction. So my computer has the ability to change a little aspect of the internet. And then the internet can bring new tools into my computer. And you see this internet thing occurring. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's coming in the period that we live in, because we are becoming aware, like technology is like an analogy of how we biologically are connected with Earth. But because we can't see it, we project it into technology. Yeah. So I guess that's it. If any of you guys want to know the positive frequency, the negative frequency, things like that, what you can do is send me your birth date, and I can give you all the information also. I can do a capture. I've got an app which does the calculation, so I can send that to you also. Yeah. So I guess that's about it. I was thinking if there's anything else. Well, there's other things, but I think the general gist is being expressed. Yeah. So, well, thanks a lot, guys. We will, as I said, we will be meeting to have a little integration. It's been really, I really enjoyed the whole course, because it's like, you know, we've been seeing things very, you know, very bit by bit and adding the new things onto it. But if you can see, all this is a complex emergence from the first class, where we saw the numbers, the planes, and all that. Yeah? So what I'm saying is that the stencil is a fingerprint of the finger. I would say that the main fingerprint is the numbers. The rest is just models, different models to express how those numbers are related together. But the numbers have something which are very essential. It's like a kind of DNA sequence of at least the Earth, the solar system, and the name of the app is the one that I enjoy. There are two ones. One is called, I'll put it here. One is called Mi Calendario. You can find it in Play Store. But it's very simple Spanish. You know, it's not like you. And the other one is called Ojos Lógicos. I've got both. Is that, you see, each of them have good things. This has a geolocalization, which is interesting, because you can see the coordinates on where you are. This hasn't got it, but this probably is, it's more simple. And in the way that it's simple, it's more clear, the way that it's provides you the number information. So so these would be the recommended ones for you to use, yeah. And well, just thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for everything. It's not an ending yet, but definitely transmit my gratitude for for this opportunity of your openness, I think. The openness to something which maybe you can resonate intuitively, but not everything probably makes sense in the sense of, it's like neurologically obvious, but there's something that connects with something deeper that goes beyond your neurology, so I guess thanks for the openness. And with this whole thing with the numbers, is just begin to open up, probably play a bit with it, but don't try to this is just a recommendation. Whenever you have an intuition of, I'd like to see this date, or I'd like to see my how many days of life I have now, or follow the intuition. Don't force it. Don't analyze too much. Just kind of be open. And that's where it begins to, because your minerals capture the synchronicity before your mind. That's why you have this resonance of, I want to speak with this person, and then you see the days of life that person has, and it's, wow, it's incredible, or whatever kind of occurs, So yeah, follow your intuition. Don't intellectualize it too much. Just kind of be open. And if you don't see anything, you leave it. Yeah. And if you do see something connecting, you just follow the trail, but very gently. Very gently follow the trail, because sometimes you open a bit, and then a big thing begins to, like a little hilo, a little string, and you open the string, and just this whole interweb begins to appear, and it begins to make sense a lot of times in your reality at your moment, and even a lot of times it's hard to communicate. This also happens. It's like when that internet enters into, is captured in your antenna, there's a moment which it makes perfect sense for you, but you don't have the wording. It's like you don't have the neurology. It's just like you just kind of captured it like in a download, but you haven't processed it. Yeah. So this also happens. Yeah. And when you try and explain it, it makes it's hard for the word to find the words sometimes. I would say trust your intuition, trust the openness of your antenna, and then begin to find ways to maybe also communicate it, which is also interesting. Yeah? So thanks a lot, I guess. No more to say, okay? We'll speak in a further occasion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.